Hello, this is my vodcast and the second section of my presentation today. I'm going to talk about research into research, and I'm going to talk about it from a neoliberal and economic rationalist perspective. In Australia, we think neoliberalism is about economic ideas being rationalised, and this is a diverse set of economic ideas that form social, political and economic policy, and it promotes the idea that we're all free to choose. Some examples of that play out in universities are things like how things are calculated, how accountable we're made for things, and the measurements that we put on ourselves. Things like standards and procedures, things like institutional governance and control through things like standards and codes of conduct. So my research into economic rationalist ideas is about how they impact on university research governance and management, on researchers and the work we do, on our identity as researchers, how it changes us as researchers, and also on the development of new knowledge. So this starts from an international and global perspective, as those international rankings have a big impact. Then it goes into nation states and a national perspective, where governments look at those rankings, and we all want to be in the clever country, so therefore research environment and policy changes occur. Australia does tend to pick up economic rationalist ideas with more rigour than other countries, and so do younger universities when they adapt into these governance areas and promote these economic ideas. That filters down into the social science disciplines, as this is about the social sciences, and then into individuals and groups. So the first of the broad research outcomes that I'm going to discuss today from this research work is the changes in expectations and behaviour in a quasi-market space. So quasi-market space is a space where traditional education needs to be provided, but we are looking at free market approaches, so funding our own research, reducing costs, increasing profit, being more strategic and entrepreneurial. So within that context, then things change, and the expectations of academics and researchers change. So some examples of that are we want more awards, more acknowledgement of ourselves. We want to be recognised more and have higher status and higher class as researchers, and there's quite a sense of having a class structure amongst the cohort of people that I have interviewed. Obviously, we want to reduce service and teaching loads. Looking for more research training, more mentoring and more support, particularly for ECRs. The expectations of ECRs are at a high level. And also things like collaboration versus collegiality, competition amongst ourselves, and also more internalised out for ourself approaches, in some ways selfish and about time and energy. So that's the first area. The second area is the changing academic and this perfect neoliberal worker that we could be as knowledge workers and not researchers. And researchers as knowledge managers as well. So in short, this is about reducing our sense of freedom and autonomy and making us more specific, task focused, time orientated and space focused, and getting us to be more compliant and conforming. So it's about productivity, efficiency and effectiveness. Then of course we do that to ourselves. We measure ourselves on these neoliberal ideas. So we self-assess, we self-rank, we self-monitor, and we do that to other people. And there's a whole lot of self-discipline going on there as well, so that we make sure we want to fit in. It's hard to see all of these changes because all of these pushes and pulls on us, these neoliberal ideas that move and shape us, end up with local assemblages and individual positions. So they push and pull on us, so we might be busier or more strategic or more entrepreneurial. And some of us, it ends up in higher levels of wellness, and for others it ends up in high levels of stress and anxiety. So it's difficult to see, and so one of the reasons that I'd like to do this is because it is difficult to see, and I want to be able to point out all of these changes. I suppose then from a teaching perspective there's impacts for entrepreneurship, and also there's research papers that can come out of that, and also there's research papers that can come out from methodological outcomes, as I'm using a Foucauldian and Netschke genealogical approach. That's the end of this section of my vodcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll come back to you live in a second.